why in 2025 we still live in two parallel worlds, patients and doctors.
A partnership leads to the best patient outcomes.
So is the patient's perspective is necessary.
We have to work together.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the EADV Podcast. My name's Sarah Walsh. I'm an associate editor of the JEADV, and I'm really excited today because today's episode is all about launching a new section for the journal, The Patient Voice. And to discuss this, I'm joined today by two colleagues, Dalila Simonian and Francesca Sampogna, who's a section editor of the JEADV, and Dalila will be joining us as the patient editor of the JEADV. Now, we all know the mission statement of the EADV is Together for Better. And implicit in that statement is the idea that a partnership between the clinician and the patient leads to the best patient outcomes. And this is really the kind of founding idea behind this new section of the journal. And Dr. Dalila Simonian has been appointed our new patient editor. Welcome, Dalila. Welcome to the journal. We're very excited to have you on board. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to this position?
Yes, so thank you for having me. And I'm very honored to be part of this new section, patient voice section in the journal. First, I'm a patient. I have psoriasis since I was 12 years old. And so I have been living with psoriasis almost my whole life now. So it was very struggling to find information when I got psoriasis. And we were looking everywhere. We were going to so many dermatologists without never understanding what the disease is. Chronic inflammatory, but is there any cure? Is there any way to get rid of it? No dermatologist was telling me exactly how it will happen, how it will evaluate during my whole life. So it was a little bit scary when you are 12 years old to say, oh my goodness, I will have all these patches my whole life long. How can I live with that? And treatment after treatment wasn't working. And finally, I found a treatment, not a cure. And I managed to control my psoriasis. But how I found the cure? Because I was looking for information, and 30 years ago, there was no website or social media. So I found information, reliable information, because it's not easy to find the right one, as I was lucky to have lots of doctors around me, in my family. So when I found this information and I understand, because I was willing to understand what is my disease, what does it mean inflammatory, what does it mean chronic, how it works, and how can I be part of this treatment. Just by no irritation, moisturizers, I have the power to do something. I don't have to wait for the dermatologist to do something for me. And this is why the journey begins, not before. I lost 7 years. And the journey begins 7 years later, because I finally understand that I have to be a partner with my dermatologist, and I have to give him feedback about my way of life, about what makes my psoriasis coming back, and then we can adjust the treatment. So it changed everything in my life then. So I feel empowered, and I feel I got the power over my psoriasis, not the contrary. So, and this is why now I'm very honored to be part of this section, because why in 2025 we still live in two parallel worlds, patients and doctors. And to make bridges between both, we have to work together. And for me, dermatologists got the scientific background, and we have the lived experience. So together we can build partnerships and make it better and improve research in the right way. Then it's not only developing molecules, but improving lives.
Well, it sounds like it was a very frustrating 7 years for you, seeking information, trying to navigate a very unfamiliar terrain. Was there any particular experience on your own patient journey, perhaps an interaction with a clinician that sort of shaped your desire to be involved in this kind of work today?
Absolutely. This dermatologist I saw 7 years after my diagnosis just asked me question about how I feel with my psoriasis. And I even cried during the consultation, but not too long, but I said, oh, finally someone understand what I'm feeling, because it's very hard to express what you feel. It's only on the skin, yes. So the itching, the being ashamed, so covering myself even during summer while practicing lots of dance, because I was practicing 10 hours of dance per week. I have to find a way to cover, because I don't want others to see, so it was very hard. And then she touched my skin, and she asked me question about what makes she asked me, no, not question. She asked me to write on a paper each time I have flares, just to figure out if there are some, things who can maybe make it coming back. And then I understand, and I found, things that exactly. So it was very helpful, because it was empowered. I said, oh, I can do something. The treatment alone is not. The treatment is necessary, but not enough.
Yeah. So it sounds like she, listened to you, saw you as a whole person, and then engaged you actively in the process of treatment. And I mean, and just to lead on from that, Dalila, what are your main aspirations? What are your main hopes for this new section of the journal?
My main hope is that as many patients feel that there's no research and nothing is done for them, that we are just left behind, I hope that research will reach them. All these results of the study, of the commitment, because there are so many dermatologists. I'm lucky to work with a French national network. They are committed to improve quality of lives, to improve studies, to be closer and closer to meet patient needs, but the patient don't see all that progress, and this is a shame. So my main aspiration is that this section could bring research to patients in an accessible way, that they can have hope and maybe feel understood by dermatologists, so it can bring maybe even confidence to our dermatologists, because there are lots of mistrust now.
Yeah. And that's certainly our aspiration as well. And I think, that's an important concept, is bridging the gap, not only of conveying research to the patients, but also improving the other direction, the understanding by the clinicians of what the patient is experiencing. And to help us in that endeavor, we have epidemiologist Francesca Sampogna, who is going to be the section editor for this new initiative. Francesca, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and why you've chosen to be involved in this new section of the journal?
Yes, of course. Thank you. And I'm really glad to be a part of this team. And as you told, I'm an epidemiologist, and my research is focused on quality of life and psychodermatology. So what we use in this field are the so-called patient-centered measure. So what does it mean? These are measures of health outcomes that are centered on patients. So it's the patient's perspective. So it's now just clear that the clinician perspective is important, of course. Clinical assessment is important, but that also the point of view of patient is necessary. I can give a very simple example. For example, a psoriasis lesion, which is just a small mark, can be clinically irrelevant. But if this mark is, for example, on the face, on a visible part for a patient, is very relevant from a psychological or psychosocial point of view. So that's the reason why we study the point of view of patients in epidemiology. And so what we would like in this patient voice section is to hear the voice of patients. And so to hear their perception, their perspective on health, on their skin condition. And what we envisage is to, from a practical point of view, is to collect some letters or short articles that they can write, they can send us, so that we can publish them and make them available for other patients, for dermatologists, for all the audience. And this is very important because we can make sure that scientific progress aligns with what patients really want, what matters to patients.
And of course, nowadays, applying for grants, the emphasis is very often placed on patient engagement, patient involvement, how the data that's generated will be disseminated to the patient. So I think it's becoming part of the funding agenda as well. So the call for manuscript submissions is out. We would welcome any material that any listeners would like to submit, either a patient's individual view or perhaps a collaborative effort between a clinician and a patient who've gone on a therapeutic journey together. So it's 750 words, up to 4 authors. I would also emphasize that if English isn't your first language, we do have services available within the publisher to help translation into English. And so we want to keep this as accessible to as large a number of people as possible. And finally, to finish, I think one other area which we shouldn't ignore, and another importance of this new section, is in the work of the EADV in the domain of advocacy. So we have a very active patient and advocacy task force, which is engaging at European level to convey messages that are of importance to patients and clinicians, and the partnership of patients and people like Dalila is absolutely essential to the success of the lobbying of this group. Well, thank you both very much for joining me today. I wanted to give the last word to our new patient editor, just perhaps to give some words of encouragement to our listeners to submit their material. So I'll hand over to you, to Dalila, for the final words of today's podcast.
Yeah, so I think don't be shy to express what you are feeling. There's no reason to be ashamed of feeling bad or feeling disappointed with treatments, or scary about all this new treatment, or this whole information, or even if you think that you see something on social media, because we have so many information right now, who are sometimes misleading, and so don't hesitate to send whatever you have in mind, and it will help dermatologists to better understand what you feel.
Thank you both, and thank you all for listening to this edition of the EADV podcast.